Dear students, resolving the forces in along x and y direction is the most important step, and students often commit mistake in this. And I think these mistakes can be avoided if you remember just three steps and mechanically, religiously, just follow these steps and you will go no wrong. You can be sure about that. Step number one is, suppose you want to, you want to resolve the forces in x and y direction, and here we have f1, f2, f3 and f4, four forces, their directions, how they are acting, the angles which they are making with x or y axis, everything is given here. And let's now first state three rules which you have to follow. Rule number one is decide the sign. Rule number one is decide the sign. What is the sign, whether it's positive or negative, of the force which is resolved along x and y direction? Second step, this first step. Second step, choose the small angle with x axis. With x axis. That means the force given is making angle with y or x axis, but you have to choose the smaller angle which it makes with the x axis. Now with x axis it makes one small angle, one big angle. For example, look at force F2. Here is force F2, right? So F2 is making angle of 40 degrees with x axis. Also it is making an angle of 140 degrees with x axis, and you are going to take smaller angle which the force makes with x axis, which is 40. Or consider force F4. F4 is making 15 degrees with y axis, and it is making 90 minus 15, which is 75 degrees with x axis, and it is also making 180 minus 75, which is 105 degrees with x axis. Now what second rule says, that you should choose the smaller angle which the force makes with x axis. So there with x axis it makes two angles, 105 degrees and 75 degrees. So you will choose 75 degrees, right? So second rule is choose the angle which the force makes with x axis, and that angle should be the smaller angle, because the force will make two angles with x axis. Choose smaller angle. That is second. Third is cos of that small angle, cos of that small angle into, I'll call that small angle as alpha, into the magnitude of force, that is F, whatever is the magnitude, right? Into magnitude of force, that will give you Fx, but then the magnitude of Fx, right? And then you apply the sign, then you will get the direction also. Sign means direction which you have determined in the first step. Okay, so and sine of that small angle into magnitude of the force, right, will give you magnitude of the force along y axis. So this is very simple, right? So let's apply these three rules and resolve the force in x and y direction. Let us consider force F3. Okay, we want to find out what is the let's say what is the angle it is. I'm just removing all these things, so clearing the earlier marks. Okay, so I'm considering now this force F3. We want to find out what is the resolution of F3 along x, right? And then we'll find out F3 along y. Our first step is decide the sign. Okay, sign. So this F3, when it is resolved along x, right? When it is resolved along x, that means it will have this sign towards right. So the sign is positive, towards positive x. F3y, you can immediately decide the sign. It will be resolved like this, right? and the arrow of this force F3 is going to be downward. So F3y will have minus sign. Fine. Now let's choose the second rule. Choose the smaller angle which the force makes with x-axis. Now see, this force F3 is making 60 degrees with y-axis. That means it is making 30 degrees with x-axis, and it is also making 180 minus 30, it is 150 degrees with x-axis. So you will choose the smaller angle which the force makes with x-axis, which is 30 degrees, right? Then it's very simple. You will, if you want to find out the magnitude of force with the x-axis, then cos alpha is smaller angle is 30, so this is going to be F3 cos 30. That's it, and sine is already given. Similarly, if you want to find out the y component, sine is already given, which is minus. You will say it is F3 sine of 30. What is 30? 30 is the smaller angle which the force makes with x-axis. That's it. So you have to remember only these simple steps. Now consider force, let's say F4, right? F4 force. I'm considering this force. Before that, let me clear this all so that it becomes less clumsy. Okay. So we have now considering force F4. So let's say if we want to find out F4x, right? Again, F4x, first find out, and F4y. So first sine. If you resolve it, now F4, when you resolve it along x, look at the arrowhead, it will be towards left, right? So this is minus. I'm writing here minus. What about F4y? If you resolve it like this, the arrowhead is downward, right? So it is minus. Both F4x, F4y are with minus sign. Then choose the second rule. Second rule you see here. Second rule is choose the smaller angle with the x-axis. Now this F4 is making 15 degrees with y-axis. That means it is making 75. 90 minus 15, 75 degrees with x-axis. And it is making 105 degrees, 105 degrees with x-axis. So you are going to choose smaller angle. So F4x is equal to F4, magnitude of F4. So I'm saying F4 is magnitude, please. Of course, I don't have to, probably it's pretty clear. F4 into cos of smaller angle. What is smaller angle with x-axis? 75. Okay. And F4y is F4, the magnitude, into sine of the smaller angle which it makes with the x-axis, 75. Right. So this is how in a very simple mechanical way you can resolve the forces, right? So we can do one more if you wish, but that's the method. Let me do one more, right? So let me clear this. Let me also clear the third rule. I said fx is equal to f into cos of smaller angle, fy is equal to f into sine of smaller angle. So this is what we had said. Okay, now let's consider force F2. Force F2. So we want to find out F2x. So it's simple. First write the sign. So when you resolve it along x, it is the arrowhead goes to be towards left. So sine is minus. F2y. When you resolve along y, this is going to be arrowhead upward. So it is plus. So F2x. Now what is the angle it is making with x-axis? It is making 40 and 140. So you will consider the smaller angle, that is 40, and F2x is cos of that smaller angle into magnitude. So it is F2 cos of 40 degrees. You are not going to choose 140 because that is not the smaller angle. Similarly, for y-axis you will write F2 into sine of 40. That's it, right? So you have solved this. Consider force F1, and we want to force F1x. So this is force F1, right? So what is the angle which it is making with x-axis? It is 25, and if you consider this angle 20, it is going to be 165. 180 minus 25. So you are going to consider 25. Before that, consider the sign. So this force, when it is resolved along x-axis, please note this is towards left. So the x-axis will x component will be towards left. So it is minus sign. F1y will be, when you resolve it like this, this is the resolution, and this is the arrowhead, so it will be downward. F1y will be downward, so this is also minus. And then you will write F1 into cos of 25 and F1 into sine of 25, right? So these rules are simple to remember, and if you do keep them in mind, then you will not make any mistake with the resolution of forces. Thank you.